Today, I'm going to share the truth about depression. But first, have you ever just struggled to take a shower? You think about it, you want to get in, but every step along the way just feels so overwhelming. Or maybe you get phone calls or text messages from friends or family, people that you might want to talk to. But communicating with them just seems like the biggest chore. You just have no motivation at all. Or maybe you felt just completely numb inside and nothing feels good. You're just exhausted and you don't want to deal with anything or with anyone. Some of you might even find yourself asking, wondering, well, if everything seems fine in my life, why do I feel like this? And most of us have been taught to view depression in a very simplified way. We've learned that it's a chemical imbalance, or this idea that it's connected to low serotonin. But this actually scientifically has been disproven. Yes, depression itself is very real, as are the symptoms of it. But what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to explore depression as a symptom. And instead of thinking as depression as a disorder itself caused by low serotonin, we can begin to think of depression as a symptom of chronic overwhelm. Depression itself is actually an instinctual response to chronic or consistent stress that typically begins when we're really young, often in childhood. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but depression is deeply tied to childhood trauma. And if you've experienced childhood trauma, you're 3 times more likely to experience the symptoms of depression, because it's our childhood that lays the groundwork for how we cope with and deal with the stress of life around us. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you grew up in a home where your parents fought a lot over money. So bills would come in, or maybe one of them would overspend, and there'd be a lot of yelling or name calling, leaving you to try to protect yourself. Now, let's say this happened over and over again, and you would end up going to your room, maybe trying to hide from the arguments, the escalation that was taking place. Over time, your nervous system would start to hear fighting, and to protect you, it would put you into a shutdown state. You might even start to daydream, or maybe watch TV shows, beginning to feel numb as all of this chaos was going on around you. Now, when our body gets too overwhelmed, our nervous system switches into the shutdown state, or what's called hypoarousal. Let's first talk about the opposite, hyperarousal. So exactly as it sounds, you can think of hyperarousal as being really hyper, as having a lot of energy and a lot of movement, as being on edge, activated. So the opposite, hypoarousal, feels like you can't move, you're exhausted, you're unmotivated. Even thinking about doing anything can feel completely overwhelming. Hypoarousal itself causes our heart rate to slow down, our speech to become monotone, and even our thoughts to become dark or hopeless. Now, all of us have something that's called a window of tolerance, or really simply, the amount of stress that we can tolerate. And like I was sharing earlier, our window of tolerance really depends on our childhood experiences and relationships. So if we had attuned parents who were able to offer us emotional support, we were likely able to develop healthy coping mechanisms. And now we're probably able to cope with a larger amount of stress and to recover quickly when we are stressed out. But on the other end of that spectrum, if we didn't have attuned parents and we didn't have the emotional support that we needed and we didn't develop healthy coping mechanisms, we probably can't handle much stress. And it'll probably take us even longer to recover from the stress that we are experiencing. So now, when we understand that depression can actually be a state of our nervous system, it actually opens up how that we can treat it and how that we can cope with it. And as many of you know, I'm a trained clinical psychologist, and I was taught that depression is treated with medication or with talk therapy. And while both of these things can be beneficial, I'm a big believer in getting to the root cause and in empowering people to heal themselves. And when we understand that depression happens not just in the brain as we were taught, but in our body, we can give people access to so many more tools to heal. So here are some key things that you want to know about healing depression. So let's talk about treating depression as a nervous system response. The first step is to make your environment as stress-free as possible. Because remember, depression is a response to feeling overwhelmed. You're not going into this state because something is wrong with you. Your body is actually protecting you when it's shutting you down. Our nervous system takes cues from our entire environment. It's always sensing when we're safe and when we're not safe. So make sure that your environment can be as safe as possible, and this means your relationships. Make sure that you're setting clear boundaries and that you're making your home in particular as stress-free as possible. Make sure that you're arranging your work projects or even things that you like to do in a way that sets you up to be as stress-free as humanly possible. The second step is to begin to notice when your body goes into shutdown mode. Now, we all have triggers when our body starts to shut down. We might not yet notice it, but you might start getting brain fog where you can't think straight. You might find yourself becoming really irritable. Or maybe you start noticing catastrophizing thoughts where you're always thinking about anything that could possibly go wrong. Building this awareness is the first step to changing. So begin to notice when your body is shifting into this state and begin to give it a voice. You can even say something to yourself like, I'm sensing that my body is going into a shutdown state. I'm having thoughts that life is hopeless. You're reminding yourself in these moments that what you're experiencing is a state of your nervous system and it's not who you are at your core. And once you can begin to view yourself and this experience in that way, you can actually give yourself the power to change it. The third step to dealing with depression as a nervous system state is to begin to redirect your thought patterns. Now, first, we need to acknowledge there are two different types of stress. There's external stress, happens outside of us, whether it's relationship stress, issues at work, unexpected bills. And then we have internal stress that often comes from our mind or our thoughts. And some of us can be really tough on ourselves and our thoughts, really critical. We only see ourselves in the world from a negative perspective. Even take a moment now to think about if someone's really negative in your life. Do you know a negative person? They probably bring up every reason why they can't do something, or they over-focus on everything that's going wrong or might go wrong. Now, even if you try to cheer them up, they're really stuck in that cycle of negativity. Maybe it's yourself. And if you notice, when we keep thinking and telling ourselves negative things, we're actually sending cues of danger, a lack of safety to our body. And the reality is our body doesn't know the difference between what we're really experiencing, what is objectively happening, and what we're thinking, imagining, or worrying about. So if you're thinking things like, oh, this is so hopeless, I don't know why I even try, nothing ever works out for me, then I'm sure you can imagine that your body is going to stay stuck in that shutdown state. It's going to feel hopeless, overwhelmed, and as if nothing can ever work out for me. So just begin to notice the thought patterns that you're having. And then you can begin to take that fourth step, which is to practice somatic interruptions. Now, this is just a fancy way of saying movements. When you start having those intense thoughts, those hopeless thoughts, you can stop your brain by moving your body. And this movement can look like whatever is accessible to you, whether it's shaking your arms or your legs, doing jumping jacks, putting on a song you love and dancing, maybe just doing some squats really quickly, or going on a power walk around your neighborhood. It is so important to move your body when you feel your body going into that shutdown state of hypoarousal. And the more you practice these small movements, the quicker you'll help your body get back into a regulated state. Repetition and consistency is key to shifting your body out of hypoarousal. Now, the fifth and final step to healing depression as a symptom of nervous system response is by keeping one small promise. right after you practice those somatic interruptions or those movements, your nervous system is going to be in a more mobilized or activated state, and you'll have some more energy as a result. So use that momentum to make and keep one small promise to yourself, or one thing that you can do to begin to rebuild your self-confidence. It could be doing the dishes, it could be doing a load of laundry, maybe it's journaling. Any small thing that you can do for a short period of time that will help you to feel good about yourself. Because so often when we're stuck in hypoarousal at the end of the day, we think to ourselves, I did nothing today. And sometimes that might be true. But in those moments where we can use our energy to take that one small step forward, we can begin to rebuild confidence and to feel better about ourselves. So you really want to focus on one small choice, one small action, one small promise, and begin to build a foundation of momentum from there. I really, really hope this helps. Some of you might want to pause this and write down all of these steps so that you can begin to practice them. Begin to think about depression as a nervous system state, as something that you can control, and practice compassion around yourself as you begin this journey. And as always, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you heard of this view of depression before? And if not, what is your reaction? Leave it below.